try maybe not to stand in front of the images. Yeah, that's one. Faces first.
Thank you.
So I'd like to express my gratitude to Massimo Leone, the whole ERC project and team, and the Polish Institute of Advanced Studies for the great welcoming and the wonderful opportunity to be to put some reflection together on this. I'll start. It's going to be more of an historical perspective on the troubled face. The tale of Narcissus, as told by Ovid, appears in the third book of his Metamorphoses. Narcissus is now 15 years of age. He arouses the desire of many young men and girls, but his delicate beauty is accompanied by such intense pride that no one has the right to touch him. Narcissus rejects any display of love and greets Echo with the same disdain he reserved for the many who desire him. Soon, one of his victims will cry out, raising hands to the sky, quote, "So may he himself love, and so may he fail to possess what he loves." End quote. And Nemesis, the goddess of retributive justice, answered this prayer. Narcissus will be punished where he sinned, just as those who had loved him had never been able to possess him. So would Narcissus be forced to love and never be able to possess the object of his love. His passion would be precisely the instrument used to execute his punishment. Narcissus, tired from hunting, went to drink from a clear spring that no one had ever disturbed. And there he saw his own image reflected in the water and fell passionately in love. In this founding story, there are two stages of Narcissus' reception of his own image on the watery surface, which we shall call the stage of the other and the stage of the mirror. Initially, Narcissus does not recognize himself in the spring. He lies on the ground, and while he desires to quench his thirst, a different thirst grows. While he drinks, he is seized by the vision of his reflected form. He loves a bodiless dream. He thinks it is a body, when it is only, the text says, a shadow. Narcissus went up to the spring to drink and not to see, which is why he is so surprised and intrigued when he sees someone of great beauty looking up at him. Narcissus conceives a passion for this beauty and commits a twofold error. He thinks he is seeing a body when in fact is nothing, which is nothing but a reflection, a shadow. This body, moreover, with which he falls in love, is his own body, although he is not aware of it. I quote, "Unknowingly, he desires himself." Stunned, he is like a statue. The author warns him of his mistake and describes what is misleading him. This image is nothing but an illusion, and it is nothing in and of itself. All to no avail. Narcissus does not recognize himself, and in his mirror double, he sees the face of another. Then comes the moment of identification, the stage of the mirror. Narcissus realizes that he is looking at his reflection and he is no longer deceived by his own image. But this process of self-recognition can be perceived even more clearly if one attentively observes in the text its necessary counterpart all through the story. That is, Narcissus' progression towards a recognition of the medium. His awareness of the presence of the medium is expressed through the poetics that extend from total illusion to the recognition of the reflecting qualities of the watery surface. The first moment is that of the complete ignorance of the medium. Narcissus looks at himself in the spring and sees not his reflection, but a completely different person, truly present before him, and part of the same spatial reality. The illusion is total. But the poetics of illusion, they are focused here upon the sense of sight, But very quickly, Narcissus can no longer be satisfied with mere gazing. The sensorial fascination spreads rapidly to touch. He is seized by a haptic fever. He covets what he sees, tries to embrace it by whatever means he can. He gives his lips in vain to the deceptive pool. Before long, Narcissus' frustration at the impossibility of a tactile encounter with the other will account for a new level of medial recognition, the naive reception of the medium as a simple obstacle. Quote, "And it increases my pain the more that no wide sea separates us, no road, no mountains, no walls with locked doors. We are only kept apart by a little thin film of water." End quote. The medium, the fine film of water, is perceived as a transparent obstacle within the same space of reality, rather than as the support of a reality other than the one in which Narcissus moves about. The illusion, still within the stage of the other, is now part of the confusion, the failure to distinguish between real space and virtual space. Narcissus does not conceive that this other might be an image requiring the support of a medium to attain visibility. Caravaggio's Narcissus makes marvelously explicit the stage of the other as it is depicted in the myth. The image is divided horizontally by the line separating earth and water, and is articulated vertically in the relationship between Narcissus and his mirrored double. The composition of the scene is reduced to a close-up, portraying the young man in light against a black background, fascinated by his own image as it emerges in the half-light. The ephib radiates the image with his chiaroscuro effect, while his double struggles against the darkness. The eloquent contrast between the two protagonists of the image of the picture emphasize their alterity. Various corporeal details subtly illustrate the theme of the adolescent's two sensorial thrills at the spring. His right hand is at the very edge of the water and is reflected without touching the surface. His face, torso, and knee, with its phallic connotation, are also reflected. Narcissus gazes at the other and is delighted by what he sees. His left hand, however, already desires to touch the other. It is seeking to caress him. The aim now is to go from contemplation to embrace. Narcissus is captivated by the face while we see his hand plunge into the water. A very faint ripple glistening around the palm of the end of his left hand and along the mirrored line suggests the presence of the surface. Thus, two instances of Narcissus' sensorial capture of this other create a dialogue from one hand to the other. These two hands also form two meeting points on the surface of the water, joining the figure of Narcissus to that of this double in a continuous circular form. The adolescent's bared right knee occupies with its reflection the center of the composition and functions at the pivot of this circle of homoerotic illusion. The turgescent member associated with the left knee, which is not reflected and is covered with a piece of clothing split down the middle, points to the sexual drive governing Narcissus. Finally, this protruding knee, heading dangerously in the direction of the viewer, can also be perceived as a symbol of contact and penetration with the surface, which in this case might just as easily be the painting surface as the watery surface. We have here an example of a medial mise en abîme, where the viewer, through the canvas screen, can witness Narcissus' intoxication with his double, represented in the mirror screen. If we return now to the text, Ovid then implies that Narcissus had discovered the synchronism between his own movements and those of the other. And at last, the moment of identification comes. Narcissus recognizes the other as his reflection, his own image on the surface of the water. Quote, I am he, I sense it, and I'm no longer deceived by my own image. The illusion has been broken by the correct perception of the medium, the support of a representational space, which is meant to be seen as an image, and moreover, in this case, a self-image. Yet, Narcissus perceives this moment as a drama, the drama of identification. Now he will lament the fact he cannot shed his own body in order to love himself as another. Quote, oh, I wish I could leave my own body. Strange prayer for a lover. I desire what I love to be distant from me. End quote. Ovid's Narcissus wants to part from the object of his love in order to love it as a thing apart. He does not love himself out of self-sufficiency or self-satisfaction when confronted with his own image. He loves is not some egotistical self-projection. In this regard, he is not narcissistic or vague. Narcissus is never narcissistic in Ovid's text. But Narcissus, in his delirium, returns to his gazing. This is what I'd like to point. And his relation to the medium as one final revival, his tears stir the water. The surface becomes troubled, and the ripples now leave the image unclear. The reflective qualities are so affected that Narcissus calls again to his own face, speaking in the second person singular, and thus reinvesting his own image with a strong sense of otherness. Quote, where do you fly to? Stay, cruel. Do not abandon one who loves you. Allow me at least to gaze at what I cannot touch, and so provide food for my miserable passion. End quote. But Narcissus has already recognized this other as his own image. Now he knows the ontological impossibility of reaching the space where his reflection is. He is no longer seeking to touch, to reach this so-called other. It is his tears and not his hands which trouble the surface. He also knows that the other's existence is fragile and of necessity depends on the surface that supports it. He just wants to see it, for the clear mirror allows him, if not to touch himself as another, at least to see himself as another. The troubled mirror refuses to allow Narcissus the possibility to gaze at his own face, the final fuel to his madness. He is the plaything of a surface that shows him to himself, then hides him, and ultimately reveals him again. But soon, he has lost his vigor and strength, along with everything that once charmed his eyes. Narcissus wastes away and dies, stretched out on the shore, unhappy that he is not different from himself. The myth of Narcissus is a cultural archetype to be found all through Western literature and art history. A myth that is at the origin of a strategy of representation that confronts a person with his or her own image through a medium. It has become paradigmatic of any reflection engaging individuals with their own image in the mirror, and seems likewise to be authoritative when we consider the relationship of individuals to their image, also represented by any other two-dimensional support, the canvas of a painting, a cinematograph screen, a photographic surface, a laptop, for example. But my aim now by resorting to different examples from the work of American video artist Bill Viola, will be to highlight various mise-en-scène and representational strategies that have their origins in this classical example, but which reformulated. In 2000, Bill Viola began a series of video pieces which he brought together under the title The Passions. His aim was to make a virtually exhaustive study of all the corporeal and above all facial expressions portraying human passions. Surrender is a silent video diptych consisting of two flat plasma displays mounted vertically on a wall. The work features two half-length figures obeying a model of horizontal axial symmetry in order to suggest a process of reflection. But this mirroring device is disqualified by its obvious reference to the difference between the two protagonists, given the difference in their gender, man and woman, as well as the color of the clothes. The man is wearing red, while the woman is in blue. Their emotional posture and the dejection which immediately emanates from their faces testify to a profound inner desolation. In this vertical diptych, the two figures stand without making eye contact, then lean simultaneously toward each other as if they wanted to touch, or more precisely, to kiss. So in the next slide, I show the chronological sequence of the video by displaying stills that I progressively align next to each other. When they have bent down completely, facing each other, we can make out their moving reflection on a narrow strip along the edge where the two images are linked. See that here. Indeed, their faces cannot meet and are confronted with the existence of a watery surface along the edge of the two panels. At this point, the two actors complete their descent and their faces touch the water. Finally, they stand up straight, and as they pull away from the water, this causes it to ripple. Water, like tears, pours from their faces, further disturbing the surface. Oddly enough, it is the very image of their bodies and not their reflections which undulates. This oscillation increases in intensity and progressively overwhelms both screens. The viewer gradually realizes that it is not the half-length bodies which are visible in nearly all of the image, but in fact the reflection of their bodies. Consequently, the thin strip, which was supposed to represent the reflection along the edge, actually leads straight to the recording of the persons. The troubled water reveals a scopic device that engaged not the actor's image, but the reflection of their image. Viola has filmed not the characters directly, but the watery surface. The spectacle of their movements, as captured on video, reaches us through a natural mirror. Thus, in a way, we found ourselves at a double medial distance from them. The artist is playing here with the degree of reality the image reveals to us. The image of a body, which in reality turns out to be the image of the reflection of a body. The truth of the image, so to speak, is revealed to us through the troubled water. Moreover, Surrender goes beyond the traditional representation of pathos by making use of the watery surface, reflective properties, and above all by applying the troubled aspect to that surface. The distortion of the actor's physical features, determined by the passion which inhabits them, is indeed accentuated by the troubled aspect of the medium. Surrender finally uses the troubled surface in order to increase even further the troubled expression on their faces. And the thread, which literally joined the natural mirror to the devastated facial expression, is a stream of tears. Traditionally the most explicit demonstration of sadness on an afflicted face, tears also act here as a troublemaker, as they splatter onto the surface. In fact, the entire space is nothing but tears. Bill Viola, in his interview with Hans Belting, explained that he encouraged his two actors to view the pool as if it were filled with the tears of all those who had ever wept. Therefore, they had to lean down into the source of all sorrows. When they emerged, their faces were in a way impregnated with these universal tears. The cycle of inclination, immersion of the face and straightening up is repeated 3 times and disturbs the surface to such an extent that it eventually distorts their bodies to the point of virtually dissolving them in an arabesque of light and color. The video repeats itself indefinitely, each time alternating the position of the actors. Surrenders combines a double archetypal quality of natural mirror and symbol of purification that is peculiar to the watery element. But the union between mirror and purification is realized through the action of tears, and even more through the double function of trouble which the tears create in the image. A function of medial order, the troubled surface eventually lifts the veil of illusion in which the work had been enclosed until now. It revealed that the image, in actual fact, is a mirror of water. And a function of a mystical order. The troubled surface translates the troubles in one's soul with even greater intensity, transforming the image into pure emotion. This cycle of compassion and purification by water, which the work projects, is moreover a baptism. To be sure, a very particular one, a baptism of tears, since it is here a rite of purification, where the waters are the tears wept by all humanity. Such a baptism of tears reappeared in the work Purification, 2005, which came after the series of the Passions. Indeed, Bill Viola, Esa-Pekka Salonen, at the time conductor of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and Peter Sellers, a theater director and filmmaker, agreed to collaborate on a new production of Richard Wagner's Tristan und Isolde, devising a new aesthetic in order to reformulate the notion of Gesamtkunstwerk and incorporate music, theatrical staging, and visual art. The premiere was held at the Opéra Bastille in Paris on April 2005. Since then, it has been performed in a number of different cities around the globe. Viola brought together the ensemble he created for his Tristan und Isolde under the evocative title, The Tristan Project. For the artist, the aim was to create a visual world in parallel to the action and reflecting the various manifestations of unconditional love on the model of Tristan and Isolde's love for each other, and retracing the various stages that led the two lovers to their death and rebirth. And Purification does precisely cover the first act of Tristan und Isolde. Purification is a silent video installation consisting of 2 rear-projected screens mounted against the wall in a diptych. The work is structured in 7 image sequences that unfold in slow motion for a total length of slightly more than 50 minutes. The sequences comprise a continuous incarnation of the different stages of the ritual for preparing the symbolic sacrifice required for the two lovers' transformation and rebirth. The sequence of purification you can see here, and of which I'd like to show you a brief excerpt, is entitled Basin of Tears. basin of tears reproduces the cycle with which we've been familiar since surrender. Just as the reflection becomes troubled following the immersion of the face from the basin, this trouble is further accentuated by the tears on their faces, which they now let fall to the surface. The two protagonists also repeat this cycle 3 times over. Shortly before the second immersion, they grasp the basin with their hands, and when they break the surface for the second then third time, the water spills over with increasing intensity. The last time they emerge from the water, their smiles are ecstatic, but very quickly their features become distraught and express a deep sorrow. Basin of Tears combines also the expression of human passion, the play of blood, mirrors, and streams of tears. Dissolution is the 7th and last sequence of Purification. The man and the woman find themselves in front of a blue background. We can see the upper part of their naked torsos and their heads. Their faces are scrubbed, their hair pulled back. Their eyes are closed and their expression is serene. They seem completely motionless until their nose penetrates a surface which we presume is liquid, given the ripples that form around the contact zone. Their faces dip gradually deeper into the water. The fine edge of the surface, the line of demarcation between the space where their faces are entering and that containing their bodies, is gradually growing larger, so that once the characters stop moving, we can see the contour of their faces. Their eyes are now open. I show here again a short excerpt of the sequence. Suddenly, they breathe out all at once, making large bubbles, then rise up out of the water. A shower of tears pearl their faces, now on the other side, and strike the surface of the water. We are watching the scene from within the basin of tears, so to speak. The surface is agitated and now constitutes a watery obstacle between the camera lens and the protagonist's faces. This blurred obstacle distorts their faces and prevents us from seeing them clearly. Our underwater position is precisely that which Ovid's Narcissus ascribed to the other when he despaired of ever being able to embrace him, until he recognized the figure of his reflection. We are indeed on the other side of that thin film of water, located between the screen and the stage, not a watery mirror, but a simple blurred obstacle. The scene continues in this way for roughly 2 minutes, until the colors that lit up the image begin to fade. The image turns progressively to black and white. The agitation of the water is such that we can hardly make out their features and cannot tell the woman from the man. They are no longer specific faces. They are just any face. Soon they will no longer be human faces, but just swollen spots. The light is fading now, and the screen founders in darkness as we head toward complete obscurity. Only a few rare ripples shine on the surface. Then nothing. Purification ends with this image of nothingness. In conclusion, very short. by analyzing the multiple situations created with a trouble aspect, that is with un effet de trouble, in Bill Viola's work, and in particular by observing the processes where strategies already existing within the myth of Narcissus have been visually reformulated, we might have succeeded in verifying the anthropological axiom according to which humankind will resort to new means and media, as you've shown today, in order to debate issues that are age-old but never outmoded. Thank you for your attention.